Good evening, Commissioners, citizens of Carteret County. I'd like to thank you for allowing me to come up and just share a few brief insights on what had transpired over the last few weeks regarding Hurricane Florence. This storm, as we all know, has brought unprecedented impacts on our county and the lives of many of our fellow citizens. And the full impact is still unknown, and the lasting effects will be with us for some time. I would like to say, however, that I am very proud of the way that we all came together before and during the storm. In the days leading up to the storm, our county control group met, discussions were had, and decisions were made in order to reduce the potential for loss of life in our county. When we were considering the arrival at the time of a Category 4 hurricane with the potential to reach a Category 5, this was a very somber and sobering prospect. Weeks later, now seeing the total devastation which was brought by Hurricane Michael in Florida, even more so. The decision was made to work with inland counties to open up shelters out of county to encourage people to head to those shelters inland and get out of harm's way. At the time, we had no way of predicting exactly how bad things could potentially be here in our county. When a call is made to evacuate, we all have to understand that not every person has the means to evacuate and leave the county. And having these inland shelters available was important for many of these folks. Over 100 of our citizens went to these inland shelters. A good portion of those people were transported by county staff. We encouraged others to leave, and many of the citizens heeded the call and left the area. And I believe very strongly that if more people had stayed behind, we all would have had a lot more on our plate to deal with, and lives potentially could have been lost. As the storm downgraded from a Category 4 to a Category 2, and for those who decided not to leave, local shelters were set up. A number of people arrived at these shelters after the storm due to damage sustained at their homes. In all, more than 750 people took refuge at some point in these shelters, and we still have more people in our shelters as we speak. As to the shelters, I'd like to thank Cindy Holman, Clint Lewis, Stephanie Cannon, and the staff from the Health Department and the Department of Social Services and all the volunteers who worked at these shelters. They all worked very hard for the citizens of our county and the people who took refuge in those shelters, and they deserve a lot of credit. They really helped a lot of people. I'd like to thank Superintendent Matt Bottoms and his folks and the school system for the use of the schools as a shelter. I'd also like to thank them for the use of their fueling site here in Beaufort, which I can tell you was a major help to those of us who were first responders in the community and out in the field. You guys really helped us out a bunch, and I thank you. I'd like to thank all of the local government elected officials and employees for working so hard individually and collectively to do what they could do to help all of our citizens during this storm. I'd like to thank the Board of Commissioners for your leadership and support during this event. You were all engaged, active, and doing what you could do to help throughout this entire ordeal. Your efforts making phone calls to our legislative representatives and their calls really made a difference. Your visits to the shelters, serving food, doing community assessments, helping to get pumps to pump water out of communities, working on fueling issues, and everything else you did really helped a bunch and really made a difference. I'd like to thank County Manager Tommy Burns and all of the department heads and the staff for the tremendous job they did. Stephen Ray and Jen Sawyer with the County Emergency Services and the entire EOC team and the County Communications. You guys coordinated countless calls for service, activities, requests for resources, placement of resources, fueling critical generators, communications towers, water plants, pump stations, on and on. It's hard to describe, and you'd really have to have been there for yourself to see it, to truly appreciate what was going on in the EOC. And I can tell you that the EOC was a very, very busy place for days on end and out in the field as well, before, during, and after Hurricane Florence passed through our area. But everyone worked together for long hours with little to no sleep at some points in working through any number of issues that arose. Some things worked well, excuse me, and went according to plan. A number of things came up that were unexpected. We had a number of obstacles that were put in our way, but we found a way around them. We did what we could with the resources that we had available to get the job done. There are a lot of people in this room tonight who worked tirelessly to do their part. Many worked in areas that are part of their normal jobs, and many had to take on new roles. All of the county departments pulled together, and with their members, they got the job done, and I'd like to thank all of you. I'm very proud of our first responders, our fire, EMS, and law enforcement who worked tirelessly to protect and serve our citizens. We all worked very well together, as we always do. We conducted hundreds of checks on our citizens and conducted hundreds of rescues from flooded areas with the assistance of swiftwater rescue teams, high water vehicles, and even U.S. Coast Guard helicopters. I'd like to thank the members of our Sheriff's Office for all the work they did, and I'd especially like to thank our jail staff for the work they did in evacuating the inmates from our jail to various prison facilities throughout the state of North Carolina, and also staying with those inmates until they were able to return to our jail. These detention officers left their homes, and they continued to work while they were away. We had a lot of help from fire and EMS departments out of the county, and they were a tremendous help in supplementing our local departments. Through our Sheriff's Association, we received assistance from 70 out-of-county deputies who came to our county and helped us to prevent looting, protect supplies, perform patrols throughout the county. Sheriff Alan Jones from Caldwell County came here himself personally with his team and stayed here for several days assisting us in our efforts. Many of these deputies worked at the fire departments receiving and passing out supplies. Over and over, I heard how much people appreciated them being there, the tremendous job they did, and how happy those folks were to be here helping us. That was the experience throughout, people pulling together to help. Last but certainly not least, I'd like to thank the citizens of our county. It was you who heeded the warnings to evacuate or go to a safer location. It was you who stayed off the road until conditions allowed and we were able to get the roads cleared. It was you who obeyed the curfews. It was you who jumped in and assisted our deputies and county maintenance crews to clear some of the roads before DOT even had the chance to get out there. And then it was you who worked with the churches, the fire departments, and other locations set up for the distribution of supplies, ice, water, and feeding. Many of you volunteered to work at these sites. Many of you looked after your neighbors, friends, and other citizens in need. Even now, weeks after the storm has passed, you are still doing your part through our churches, other organizations, and individually. We have a lot of people who have been displaced from their homes, and you, the community, are continuing to do your part and to help those in need, as you always do. We had a lot of help here before, during, and after the storm. We had a lot of resources locally and people coming from far and wide across the state to help us. But we could not have accomplished what we did here were it not for the citizens of this great county. It is you who make us great, and it is you who always help us to succeed. As we all know, much remains to be done, but I know that we will get there if we continue to work together. Thank you, and God bless you.